Welcome in, guys. Forward Team Vasugian here with you on a Monday night for this edition of the Chief Zone podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all enjoying your victory Monday as Kansas City is 6-0. But a lot of talk about what this team needs to do moving forward as the wide receiver room, once again, getting thinner and thinner as there's some bad news involving Juju Smith-Schuster. We'll talk about that, but I do have a little bit of an interesting talking point that we gotta discuss here. So I'll get into that shortly. I also want to go over some of the highlights from Week 7, some of the biggest talking points from Week 7. The Jets last night, boy, they had quite a disaster. It's not so much that the Steelers won. People are not talking about that, although they had a great game, especially Russell Wilson proving a lot of people wrong. But a lot of people are focusing in on the Jets and the fact that, they're doing a lot of things, making a change at the head coaching spot, getting Devontae Adams, and so far it's not a good look for the Jets. Not a good look. People are starting to wonder if there's a different common denominator. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that. Plus the Deshaun Watson reactions here. Not so much his injury, because I think the Browns, they're kind of done anyway, regardless who their quarterback is. But the reaction to the Deshaun Watson injury from Cleveland fans and from a lot of people all around the world, in fact. I definitely want to get into that and more here on this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Hope you're all having a great Victory Monday. Come on in. I see you guys in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate you guys for those watching live, as well as those who are listening later on Facebook, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere where you can download and listen to this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. All right, let's get right into it here. Kansas City 6-0 on the season, obviously feeling pretty good about that. But we did get hit with some bad news today. Actually, a pair of bad news injury-wise. Let's start with the cornerback, Jalen Watson, who's been having a very good season so far for Kansas City, playing the position that he's filling in for L'Jarius Sneed. This is someone who played a lot his rookie season because Trent McDuffie got hurt early in the season. But unfortunately, it does not appear that Jalen Watson is expected to come back. The reports are that he suffered a fractured ankle, and he is going to get another opinion. But it does sound like that he is not expected to come back for the 2024 season. So unfortunately, his season is over with. As far as the cornerback position goes, what's interesting is the group of cornerbacks the Chiefs have, outside of Christian Roland Wallace, who got his first career in reception, you have Trent McDuffie, Josh Williams, Jalen Watson, and Najee Johnson. And those are all guys who are from the same draft class. And I mentioned going into that 2022 season, my biggest fear with that many young defensive backs, because they also drafted Brian Cook in that same draft class. My concern was you have way too many youngsters in that secondary, and the oldest guy you had at the time, I think, was Rashad Fenton. They traded him to Atlanta for a draft pick, so the oldest player was L'Jarius Sneed, and he had only been in the league. That was his third season at the time for the Chiefs. But that ended up being a great group of guys, and obviously even better last season, the duo of Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed. That might be the best quarterback duo we've seen in Chiefs history. We've seen some really good quarterback safety duos in the past, but that right there with McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, that was by far the best quarterback duo this team's ever had in the history of its franchise. But obviously, we know the story. We see L'Jarius Sneed get traded away to Tennessee, so Jalen Watson steps up in his place, and he had been playing very well. Not as great as Sneed was last year, but Watson was having a really good season, under the radar, really good season for Kansas City. And listen, Kansas City, they got 3 interceptions against Brock Purdy. I should have looked this up. I don't know when was the last time the Chiefs forced 3 interceptions in one game. This is not a football team that gets a lot of turnovers, and they were able to get that on the defensive side. It's not often the Chiefs are on the plus side on the turnover battle. So this is one of those rare occasions where the Chiefs played much better when it came to forcing turnovers. Listen, last year, the defense, I think, did a lot of things right, except for forcing turnovers. If you're not forcing turnovers, but you're doing the other 9 things right, works for me, man. Because this team did not allow 27 or more than 27 points in any game last year. In fact, they haven't done it since Super Bowl 57. So it's been a while since we've last seen the Chiefs give up so many points, more than 30 points, or more than 27, I should say, in a football game. Listen, I do think that Josh Williams, when he was playing a lot, his rookie year was very good. So I have a lot of confidence in Josh Williams. I know Spags has been very high on Najee Johnson. He has not played a whole lot in his career because he's dealt with a lot of injuries so far, but we saw him got burned on that one play. Didn't really end up mattering too much because the Chiefs, I believe that was the same drive where Jaden Hicks got that interception there, getting his first career interception of the season. I think the most important thing to keep in mind with this Chiefs defense, and not that you ever want an injury, especially considering, the defense right now is certainly the strength of this football team. So you really can't afford an injury on the defense. So you can't really afford an injury anywhere right now in Kansas City. Unfortunately, they just keep happening every week. Someone seems to be getting hurt every week, every other week, it feels like. But I'll tell you what, I think with Watson leaving, it's certainly a loss. But I do feel like this Chiefs defense will still be able to hold its own with Josh Williams and Najee Johnson getting more snaps. I've seen enough. Well, I shouldn't say maybe enough, but I've seen some things from Josh Williams in the past to lead me to believe he'll be very good this year. He didn't play a whole lot last year compared to his rookie season because last year it was mostly McDuffie and Snead. This year, your 2 main cornerbacks have been McDuffie and Watson, and you've been seeing a lot more of Shamari Conner and nickel situations here. But now the Chiefs have to get Josh Williams and Najee Johnson more involved. So I'm very curious to see. I know Spags has been very, very high on Najee Johnson. I remember last year in training camp, not this past year, the year before, Spags was doing a press conference talking about Najee Johnson and praising him and said that he's right now on the early depth chart, one of the starters on the team at the quarterback position, which is interesting because that was at a time you had Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed. But unfortunately, Najee Johnson got hurt. He's playing now, so he has an opportunity to go out there and prove Spags right. I think Josh Williams, again, a guy who did some really good things his rookie season, didn't see much of him last year because he was lower on the depth chart. But now, these guys have an opportunity to showcase their talent now that they're going to be playing more. As long as you have a strong pass rush, which Kansas City does, not too concerned. I still think Kansas City, they're going to be the team to beat here in the AFC and in the NFL here. I just think ultimately with this Chiefs defense, as long as you have that pass rush, you'll be in good hands. And listen, looking through the Chiefs defense right now, in 6 games, Chris Jones has 3 sacks. Doesn't sound like a lot, especially for a guy that, said that he wanted to have 20 on the season. George Karlaftis just got his 2nd sack. That's the 2nd most on the team. Turk Wharton's got a sack, 1.5 sacks. And then you have Shamari Conner, Mike Pennell, and FAU, each with a sack. And I mentioned Treshaun Wharton. He has the 1.5 sacks. He split the other sack with Mike Dana. So there's only 10 sacks on the season for Kansas City. That doesn't sound like a lot. I remember last year, the Chiefs were 2nd in the NFL in sacks, right behind Baltimore. You're not seeing that kind of production sack-wise from Kansas City. The defense is still, strong and stout. This is still a defense that teams have not been able to crack the code on this defense. They have not been able to do so. So I trust that this Chiefs defense is going to be fine moving forward as long as you have that strong pass rush. And I think Josh Williams and Najee Johnson are going to be just fine stepping up and filling in for Jalen Watson. Okay, I see a lot of you guys in the chat talking about the wide receiver situation, so let's go ahead and get into that right now as we have learned Juju Smith-Schuster. This is not something Andy Reid usually does on a Monday, but he went ahead and informed the media today that Juju Smith-Schuster is out and will not play against the Las Vegas Raiders. Shocker. Another wide receiver at the injury at the wide receiver position. And this is, I believe they're calling it a hamstring injury, right? That's what they said yesterday. Yeah. Yeah, it is a hamstring injury. Well, that sucks. Okay. What do you do here? Because I'm seeing a lot of people, and I listen to 810 today. The topic of the Chiefs receivers is not really a big deal on the national front, but I listened to 810 today, and I listened to a little bit of Seren Petro's show, and in my opinion, he's the best radio host, sports talk radio host in Kansas City. And I'm hearing people call in. Oh, who should we get? Do you get DeAndre Hopkins? Do you go get Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen? I'm seeing people on social media talk a lot about going out there, maybe even more so now, getting Michael Thomas or Julio Jones. A lot of people wondering, why haven't the Chiefs elevated Justin Ross? Why haven't they elevated Nico Remigio? What about Montreal Washington? Another Corey says, suit up, dude. Corey, you are going to be one of those guys on Twitter complaining about me if I'm suited up. A lot of people talking about this whole Sky Moore thing, and I kind of posted I was trying to be funny about it, but yeah, MVS is not an option. He did go to the Saints chase. Yeah, that's a good call there. But the Sky Moore thing, I put the stat line out there. He's been targeted 3 times. He has 2 drops. He has 1 pass targeted for him that was not dropped, and has 0 catches on the season. I'm with you guys. Like, I don't know what do you need? What do you need from Sky Moore right now? What is... Like, if Sky Moore hasn't picked it up now, when is he going to? And I said this on the podcast last night, because I think we had an hour-long podcast yesterday. In the first half, we talked, mostly the positives. During the second half of the podcast, the topic of Sky Moore really dominated the conversation. And a lot of people just aren't on the Sky Moore bandwagon. Shocking news, right? But what did I tell you guys last night on the podcast? Andy Reid reminds me of another head coach in the NFL, another head coach that's won a Super Bowl, a head coach that at one point coached in Kansas City. That coach is Dick Vermeil. Why am I comparing Andy Reid to Dick Vermeil? There is one facet where Andy Reid and Dick Vermeil are very, very similar. Dick Vermeil, as you guys know, the defense was not very good in Kansas City during his time here. Offense was great. Defense, not so much. But Dick Vermeil was always the guy who had everyone's backs. Sounds a lot like Andy Reid. Dick Vermeil was the guy who trusted guys, maybe more so than they should have. Guys like Eric Hicks, Junior Seavey, Mike Maslowski, Greg Wesley. I mean, he gave a lot of confidence. Gave a lot of confidence to guys that honestly a lot of other head coaches would never have given. He was very opportunistic. He always wanted to give these guys opportunities. Let's look at Kansas City right now as I make this comparison between Dick Vermeil and Andy Reid. Okay, so you guys in the chat, you guys all remember who were some of the guys who were a liability in the receiving core? The biggest one that's going to be mentioned right away, Kadarius Toney. I mean, no doubt he was a guy that a lot of people had issues with. What did the Chiefs do? They kept going to Kadarius Toney. Unfortunately, in that, what was it, week 16 game against New England, that was like the breaking point. The Chiefs were like, yeah, we're done. We're just going to make that guy inactive now because they had seen enough. But who else was, the scapegoat of all of Kansas City's offensive woes? Well, another guy was Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Okay, Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a couple of key drops. The one against the Packers. I'm sorry, not the Packers. The Eagles on Monday Night Football. And there was the other one against the Bengals. Didn't cost the Chiefs the game in that one, fortunately, but he was targeted in open space, and all he has to do is catch the damn thing, and with his speed, He can outrun everyone because there was no one in front of him on that Cincinnati defense that would have stopped MVS. So you have yet MVS, but MVS's drop issues were not as bad as Tony's, where it was bouncing off his hands and to the defender. What's my point here? The Chiefs kept going with MVS the same way they kept going with Kadarius Toney. They kept going with MVS. Took a while, but he stepped up big in that Buffalo playoff game. 2 big catches in that one as the Chiefs were moving the ball. Meanwhile, Buffalo did not have a play more than 20 yards, more than 19 yards, I think. And in fact, if I recall correctly, the Chiefs only had 6 plays that went for negative yardage in that game. 4 of them were QB kneels. So really only 2 plays that actually went for negative yardage. And then what happened a week later? On 3rd and 9, with the game essentially on the line, the Chiefs get a first down, they ice the game, and they go to the Super Bowl. If the Ravens get a stop, which by the way, they were out of timeouts, if they were able to force an incompletion, that would have stopped the time. They would have had the 2-minute warning as essentially their 4th timeout, and they had a chance to steal that game away. But what did the Chiefs do on 3rd and 9? One of the gutsiest calls Andy Reid had made, throwing the ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He had to turn around, walking backwards, makes the catch, falling on his back, and that was the end of the game. I mean, the Chiefs had 3 QB kneels after their 2-minute warning, but that was the end of the game. They went to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a guy who was a liability on this team. What is my point here? The Chiefs are going to stick with who they have. Let me ask you guys this question. Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback since 2018, right? And what's happened every year since 2018? The Chiefs have made it to the AFC Championship game every single time. And the 2 times they did not win the AFC title game, narrow defeats in overtime. Both of them in overtime. Obviously, you don't get any bonus points for, forcing overtime. But the point here is the Chiefs either win the AFC Championship game or they fall just a teeny tiny bit short in overtime. It's not like they've ever been blown out or dominated in any of these playoff games. The only time they ever looked horrible in the playoffs was the 24-0 start against Houston and Super Bowl 55 when Patrick Mahomes basically had a junior varsity offensive line ahead of him. Those are the only 2 times where the Chiefs looked really, really bad. And I would argue, the second half of that Bengals game where the Chiefs blew that big lead. That's it. Those are like the only bad playoff games the Chiefs have had in the Patrick Mahomes era. So think of 2018 to now. 6 AFC Championship appearances in every postseason we've seen from Patrick Mahomes so far. 4 AFC Championship wins and 3 Super Bowl wins. Sounds like a damn near flawless run, right? Well, that's not been the case. If you guys have watched the Chiefs snap for snap like I have since 2018, and I'm sure a lot of you have, you'll know that things have not been roses and rainbows. Even in 2018, when the Chiefs had the 3rd highest scoring output in NFL history, things were not perfect that year. I mean, the Chiefs, they were losing a couple of high-scoring battles against New England. Everyone remembers that epic Rams game on Monday Night Football. I think they had a high-scoring contest also on Sunday night with the Seahawks. In fact, in December, they had lost 2 in a row, but they still found a way to get the number 2 seed. At the time, you got a bye week because at the time, there were only 6 playoff teams from each conference. So the top 2 seeds from each conference had a bye. So the Chiefs were still able to get a bye week. I still remember in December of 2018, there were some concerns when the Chiefs lost 2 in a row. You know who else lost 2 in a row in that same month? The Patriots, a team that went on to win the Super Bowl, beating Kansas City on the road to do so. And then 2019, there were some hiccups that year as well. That was Kansas City's first Super Bowl win with this core unit here. 2020, the Chiefs only really lost 2 games. The Raiders game, which they avenged later in the year, and the Tampa Bay game in Super Bowl 55. Every team they played that year, they beat, including the Raiders later on, and the first time they played the Bucs. But the thing about 2020 is, the Chiefs did not cover the spread a lot, which is a huge deal with Kansas City. They don't cover the spread often. And even though the Chiefs went, 15-2 on the season or 14-2? I can't remember if that was where they had 17 games or not. The Chiefs only lost 2 regular season games that year. The last game of the year, they put in Chad Henne in the backups. So even though that was a really good year record-wise and reaching the Super Bowl, blowing out the Bills in the AFC Championship game, they did not cover the spread in a lot of their games. And I remember that was a huge deal to a lot of people in the media, how the Chiefs are skating by. Sounds like what they've been doing for a majority of this 12-game win streak. Let's go to 2021. Oh, boy, 2021. Remember that one right there? Patrick Mahomes was leading the NFL in interceptions. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And the Chiefs started off the season 3-4, last place in the AFC West. Oh, by the way, the Chiefs won the AFC West. Now, we all know how that ended, and we already alluded to that earlier. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs figured it out. Now, they didn't have a lot of injuries that year, like they do now, but they figured it out. 2022, they trade away Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes becomes the first player since Kurt Warner in 1999 to win a regular season MVP and win the Super Bowl, earning the Super Bowl MVP. And by the way, he did it with a shattered ankle the entire postseason. And that was without Tyreek Hill. That was supposed to be a rebuilding year. And then last year, the down year. Remember the down year? The drops, and this is okay. Kansas City, that they've never not reached the AFC title game before. This is the year where we make them a one and done playoff team. Nope, beat Miami with ease. And then a week later, Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game. Kansas City won that one. Oh, but the Ravens, they've been blowing out a lot of teams. Kansas City's got to go on. Kansas City beat them too. They didn't even score in the second half, and the Chiefs still beat the Ravens. Oh, but now they're underdogs against the 49ers in the Super Bowl rematch. Well, Chiefs won that one as well in an epic showdown in overtime. What's my point here? Because I know I'm kind of going all over the place here with this wide receiver talk and bringing up the past and the Patrick Mahomes era. Have I not made it clear to you guys every single year there have been some hiccups? I like the 2021 start. That was not a hiccup. Those were some really bad moments. And a lot of people wrote off the Chiefs. Some in Kansas City and a lot of people outside of Kansas City, they wrote off Kansas City in 2021 after that 3-4 start. And the Chiefs, they end up getting, I think, the 2 seed that year, if I recall correctly. They ended up finishing strong. They figured it out, and I trust they'll do the same this year. Now, what is the biggest difference this year compared to those years in the past? This year, the Chiefs are dealing with injuries. And again, I'm going back to what I said. I'm listening to talk radio. People are calling in, asking about DeAndre Hopkins, asking about this player and that player. Players available in free agency. Can the Chiefs realistically make a trade? And I keep getting, I'm receiving these questions also from a lot of you guys. I feel like every single day. Every single time people ask me, as far as are the Chiefs going to make a trade? I keep saying no. Not because the Chiefs don't want to, but they don't really have a lot of options right now. Salary cap wise, they're kind of stuck. I mean, what are you going to be able to do with $4.9 million? You can't just spend all $4.9 million on one wide receiver. You can't do that because, unfortunately, you're going to have other injuries as the season goes along. So you kind of have to be able to adjust and bring in guys off the street to your practice squad after you elevate someone from your practice squad when another injury occurs, which unfortunately, it's just going to be the case. That's just the way, unfortunately, sports work out. That's the way things go, especially in the NFL. But have we not seen it? We've seen plenty of obstacles before. This is different because this is an injury, but we saw a very slow start in the past. We saw hiccups in 2019. I mentioned the slow start in 2019. 2022 without Tyreek Hill, that was a rebuilding year, right? They're rebuilding. No one has to worry about the Chiefs, right? That year. And then last year was a down year because they kept dropping all these passes, so they were 100% vulnerable in the playoffs. Nope, they go back to back. Guys, I think we need to relax a little bit. Let's chill out. Are you guys with me on this? Can we just chill out here? I'm not saying don't be concerned. The myriad of injuries, especially at the wide receiver position, which is, obviously very important considering you have a franchise quarterback, that is a concern. I'm not saying don't be concerned, but I also want people to I think the temperature is so high right now, and I think part of it is self-inflicted on us as fans. Let's drop the temperature a bit. We'll see what the Chiefs are going to do. Maybe they elevate Justin Ross or Remigio. Maybe they don't. I don't know. What I do know is the Chiefs have been playing without Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, your top 2 wide receivers, and your top 2 running backs. And who's the only undefeated team in the NFL? Okay, what am I doing? It's obviously, I'm being sarcastic here. It's the Chiefs. It's a rhetorical question. It's the Chiefs. They're the only undefeated team right now. So right now, even with all of the problems Kansas City has, they're 6-0, the only 6-0 team, the only unbeaten team in the NFL. And they have a 2-game lead in the AFC. Yeah, Jacob has a good point. Look at what Noah Gray did. Yeah, Noah Gray, who, a lot of people outside of Kansas City probably could not tell you who Noah Gray is. That guy stepped up, had 4 catches. Again, 4 catches doesn't sound anything magnificent, but when the defense is doing enough to force turnovers, to pressure Purdy and not let them score, yeah, I mean, 4 catches for however many yards it was, 60-some yards, I think it was. 66 yards. Yeah, that's your pass catching leader. Travis Kelce, meanwhile, 4 catches for 17 yards. Not great. But right now, the Chiefs are fine. They're doing enough to win. They're doing enough to win. Is it pretty? No. It was supposed to be much better this year because the Chiefs were very aggressive with the wide receiver market, going out there, getting Hollywood Brown and drafting Xavier Worthy, 2 speedsters at that position who definitely would have made a difference. Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown, with Travis Kelce struggles, was lighting up defenders, torching them. I mean, he was top 5, I think even top 3 in the NFL in catches, yards, first down receptions, and there was another category, I think touchdown catches as well, up until his injury. I mean, that guy was having a very good season, probably had a chance to be a league leader, but unfortunately, we don't get to see that play out. But they're still winning games. They're still winning games. Look, I'll be up front with you guys. You guys told me before the season, hey, Farzine, Hollywood Brown's probably not going to play this year. Rashee Rice is going to get hurt early after a very good start. Juju's going to get hurt. Isaiah Pacheco's going to get hurt. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not going to play early to start off. Patrick Mahomes is going to lead the NFL in interceptions. If you guys told me all of that, I would have said, holy shit, this team might be in trouble. This team might be a below 500 team. No, not the case. Not the case. And yeah, the defense is doing part of that. And listen, I know a lot of people want to make a huge deal about Patrick Mahomes and the interceptions, and that needs to improve. Let's be honest here. That needs to be better. But did you guys not see what Patrick Mahomes did in that game yesterday? If you're one of those people who just reads the box score, Patrick Mahomes, 16 of 27, 154 yards, 0 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 sacks, 44.4 passer rating, lowest in his career. Yeah, if you're that guy who doesn't watch the games and just goes to ESPN.com or NFL.com and reads the box score and you just go off that, sure, you're probably going to convince yourself that he was really terrible in this one. But if you actually have a pair of eyes and you watch the games, you'll see Patrick Mahomes did some things that if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, you don't win this football game. If I had to give you like a ranking list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would not put Patrick Mahomes at number 1. No, not even 2. But you can't tell me that he was not, that he didn't have a hand in this win here. He goes out there and fools that defender. And I know people are bitching about, the rules are so soft now, you can't tackle quarterbacks. The guy had a chance to push Mahomes out of bounds, and he didn't. All you have to do is just push him out. You don't have to be aggressive about it and get a possibly flagged for a flag there. I get that part of it. But you could have still pushed him out. The guy didn't even want to touch him. But because Mahomes has a brain and studies, I would say Mahomes is like the Bill Belichick of the quarterback position, where he knows the rules, every single angle of the rule, and will find a way to dance around it and try to fool defenders that may not be as familiar with the rules and will throw them off and just take advantage of it. It's not his fault. The rules are the rules. He doesn't make the rules. He just plays by the rules. And he took advantage of the defender worrying too much about a late hit call. He kind of did something similar in that Tennessee AFC Championship game where he was running near the sidelines. A couple of the players gave up on the play, but then he still kind of fought forward, coming into contact with a couple of guys. Speaking of coming into contact with a defender, in that same game yesterday with Mahomes, he goes out there and trucks Malik Mustafa, who, by the way, had a great game for the 49ers, led the team in tackles. But the rookie, yeah, he got his welcome to the NFL moment, and he kind of was a good sport about it, joked about all of that. Had that nice little, flick to Xavier Worthy. That felt like a Travis Kelce play where, they improvise, and Mahomes, right before he passes the line of scrimmage, he gets it off on time to Xavier Worthy. So even though Mahomes, statistically speaking, is not playing very well, without him, Kansas City does not have the 6-0 start. I want people to be aware of that. Again, he's not lighting it up. And I know on the betting odds right now, which is another funny conversation here. I know with the betting odds, if you go to every single website like DraftKings, FanDuel, and whatnot, Patrick Mahomes is the betting favorite to win MVP, which is hilarious to me. Understand one thing with the betting odds, that is not, if the season ended today, who wins MVP? That is a projection. So what that tells you is even though Patrick Mahomes is off to a bad start, statistically speaking, Patrick Mahomes, according to Vegas, they expect Patrick Mahomes to turn it around, step up, even with all of these issues. Let me just explain something here. Patrick Mahomes did not get any help last year with the offense and the drops and all of that stuff. You guys don't know about that. And they won the Super Bowl. Now, I know the regular season MVP is not reminiscent of postseason stats here, but my point here is, and I heard Andrew Whitworth, he was on the Rich Eisen show about a week or two ago and was asked about Kansas City. And he said that he's done doubting Andy Reid and the Chiefs, even right now with the injuries. He even said the Travis Kelce thing, the slow start from Travis Kelce does not concern him at all. And he believes that they'll get going, even though we're a third into the NFL season and it is off to a slow start. He has no concerns about it. Because he said last year he doubted the Chiefs. And listen, I had my doubts about the Chiefs at times last year. And we all saw how the season ended. But listen, teams hate what's going on with Kansas City right now. The 49ers were trying to convince everybody that this is not a revenge game. Really? It's not? You sure about that? Because I saw some... I saw a little bit of physicality in this one. Who was that defender that, had his hand on Mahomes' throat for no reason? Yeah, you're sending a message doing that. And listen, it's fine. You want to send a message? Fine. Brian Cook, he gave Trent Williams a nice little push there. Wasn't anything bad. We've seen players do it before. I saw Charvarius Ward. I think it was Xavier Worthy. Or maybe it was someone else. I can't remember. Charvarius Ward kind of got physical with someone after a play. And then Trent Williams goes out there and throws a punch at a Brian Cook's helmet, which, by the way, is stupid as hell. Why do you want to punch someone's helmet? You're going to hurt your hand more than you're going to hurt them. Kyle Turley on the Hard Knocks series back in 2007 when the Chiefs were on it. Kyle Turley, he got into a fight with someone in training camp, and Kyle Turley in his interview, his confessional, he goes, "Yo, yeah, you want to hit me? Go ahead, hit me. I have a helmet and pads on. Go ahead, hit me." Well, I've never understood people punching someone's helmet. I mean, I'm not saying these NFL players are wimps, but I don't care if you're the strongest NFL player in the league. You go out there and you hold up a fist and you want to punch someone's helmet, you're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to hurt the person you're trying to punch. So that's an idiotic move, excuse me, by Trent Williams. I'm looking forward to seeing how much he's going to get fined. And that was not it. There was a fight after the game that was not shown on the TV broadcast. Mitch Holtis brought this up on the broadcast. He mentioned somebody on San Francisco side was picking a fight with Sky Moore and Cam Thomas. what the fuck are you doing picking a fight with Cam freaking Thomas? This guy was on the Cardinals in the preseason. This guy had nothing to do with last year. And then Sky Moore, you want to pick a fight with Sky Moore? Dude, you're like picking, you're going after like people who are on the bottom of the depth chart with this football team. What are you doing fighting Sky Moore and Cam Thomas? If you really want to send a message with someone, you should probably do it with someone who people actually know. So that was kind of weird. I don't know if something was said after the game or what happened, but my point here is San Francisco was livid. They tried to convince everyone that this is not a revenge game. Well, they got whooped in this one. Patrick Mahomes had the worst passer rating of his career, and the Chiefs won by 10 points. And by the way, the touchdown the 49ers got in the end, that was a garbage time touchdown. So yeah, it was a 10-point win with a garbage touchdown the 49ers got late in the game. So as far as I'm concerned, the Chiefs, I mean, they won that game pretty damn well. When McCall Hardman got that touchdown, the game was over. Not even close. Not even close. So let's circle this back to Kansas City right now. It's been far from a perfect season. Patrick Mahomes is not playing at his best, far from it. And the wide receivers, I mean, we got injuries happening left and right, plus Isaiah Pacheco. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is yet to play. And you're 6-0. So my message to Chiefs, and I don't like to tell fans how they should feel, so I'm not going to tell you guys how you should feel, but I am going to ask you guys, because I think that's more polite. I'm going to ask you guys, let's calm down a bit. Let's drop the temperature. It's okay to be concerned about the offense right now. It's okay. I have my concerns also, and I do agree they need to improve. The Chiefs themselves will tell you that first. But let's relax a bit. We've seen the Chiefs have issues before. Yes, this is different. Last year was also different at the time. And 2021 was a different set of obstacles at the time. The Chiefs figured it all out. They haven't won the Super Bowl every single time, but damn it, they get to the AFC Championship game every single time. 2021, no one expected it. The first year without Tyreek Hill, no one expected it. Last year, certainly no one expected it. And they figured it out every single time. I'm seeing some comments here about the running back position here. And Corey, I see your comment here about Clyde comes back to 100%. Does he start over Hunt? No, I still think Kareem Hunt is your starter. But I will say this. I do have a little bit of a concern here where Kareem Hunt, as great as he's been in his return so far for Kansas City, he carried the ball 27 times against the Saints, and he carried it 22 times against the 49ers. Now, I know there was a gap right there because of the bye week, but I'm not really comfortable in today's NFL and with Kareem Hunt being 29. Now, not that I'm doubting Kareem Hunt. Again, I think he's having a great start in his return to Kansas City. But I don't know if I really want a 29-year-old to be carrying the ball 27 times, 22 times in the month of October. Save those carries for January and February. I mean, listen, I know Clyde's not playing, at least not yet, but you do have Samaje Perine. There's a reason why you went and got him. You have Carson Steele, who the Chiefs were using Carson Steele and Samaje Perine, but not until later in the game. Again, Kareem Hunt ran the ball 22 times. Carson Steele ran it 16 times. And again, Steele, not the best yard per carry average, but he's getting you the yards in those short yardage situations. Samaje Perine, he ran the ball just a couple of times. Again, not a great yard per carry average, 3 yards per carry. Steele is 2.8 yards per carry. But as a team, Chiefs ran 4.7 yards per carry. I know it helps with McCole Hardman, that 19-yard or 20-yard run he had. On that trick play that completely fooled the 49ers defense. But my point is, the Chiefs are figuring it out. I just don't want Kareem Hunt to carry so much of the load here. The guy was a down-for-down running back at one point. He's just not as young as he once was, unfortunately. Again, I'm not doubting Kareem Hunt's abilities. I know the guy's very, very good. And I'm glad he's getting the second chance and an opportunity. And obviously, this continues to be a great story. And his return, still hasn't really hit me yet. But let's relax a little bit. Only thing I'm really hoping Kansas City does, don't force Kareem Hunt to be there so many times. You lose Kareem Hunt to injury, that is when I hit the panic button. Because, I mean, who else are you getting? Are you going to call Marshawn Lynch? You calling Jamal Charles? Like, you can't do that. So Unfortunately, there's no one really available in free agency or really a trade. And Kansas City's got to be a little careful here and not allow Hunt to get burned out, essentially. That's my only major concern right now with the Chiefs. All right. Well, hey, football season is in full swing. Hockey season is back. Basketball season going to be starting up real soon here. And if you guys want to go to any games, you guys can go get your tickets from SeatGeek. SeatGeek is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. And if you guys are a new SeatGeek customer, use my promo code FARZINE. You will save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. So go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets. And if you're a new customer, use my promo code FARZINE and you'll save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. All right. Let's go around the NFL here because there are a few things I want to go over from week 7 here. I want to start with the Broncos since they played on Thursday night last week. Bo Nix had kind of an interesting game as the Broncos blew out the Saints in that one. Bo Nix missed a lot of open receivers. Now listen, I know Jaden Daniels looking really good his rookie season. Not everyone can have that kind of rookie debut in a season, which, by the way, we'll get to Jaden Daniels later because he did get hurt. But I actually do like what I'm seeing from Bo Nix right now. Obviously, he's got to improve, but Bo Nix has a lot of potential. He has a lot of talent. Now, the personnel with Denver is not great, but I do like what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. If Bo Nix can be accurate, which is my biggest criticism of him, if he can work on the accuracy, he's going to be a damn good quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. I really do. I think he'll be very good. So if he can work on that, I think, and if Denver can, work on improving its personnel, I think Denver is going to be, the biggest threat to Kansas City in the division for years to come. And maybe they have that 1 year where Kansas City may have an off year, or maybe there are too many injuries, even though that's the case kind of right now. Kind of like what happened with the Jets a couple of years where they made it further than the Patriots in the playoffs. And the Dolphins, they won the division 1 year when Brady was hurt. You got what I'm saying. Denver may have, one of those situations where they can be ahead of the Chiefs in that area there. But I think in general, I think the future is bright for Denver. I know they've had a lot of bad luck with the quarterback spot. They've tried everything from drafting guys, free agency. I mean, the only really good player they've had in recent memory is Peyton Manning. Outside of that, anyone who they've drafted before or after him just hasn't really worked out. But I do think the future is bright for the Broncos. I really do. I do want to go to the Patriots because this was really interesting. Gerard Mayo, who's a first-year head coach, he called his players soft. He said that they played soft, and that was in the loss to Jacksonville, which I picked the Patriots to win that game because the Jaguars are a mess. But man, the Doug Peterson saved his job for at least 1 week. Sure as hell did. But calling your players soft, and then Bill Belichick goes on the Pat McAfee show, which he does every single Monday, and he actually took issue with Gerard Mayo's comments and pushed back against it, talking about how he coached a lot of those players and said that they're definitely not soft. What does Gerard Mayo gain by publicly lashing out at his players and calling them soft? What do you gain from that? Let me ask you guys this. If Andy Reid called his players soft, what happens? You lose that locker room. Listen, players today, not that I have sympathy for players because they're getting paid a lot of money and listen, they're tough guys. I know that in the social media era we're in of sports where we need instant gratification, you have fans who have a lot of opinions, and then you have, a small percentage of fans who say things to players, tagging them on social media, saying things that they would never say to them in person. In 2012, if you guys recall, 2012, KU was 1-12 that year, 1-11. And I covered KU football that season during that era, the Charlie Weiss era. And I talked to one of the linebackers. I said, hey, look, social media, Twitter and Instagram are kind of on the rise right now. And you guys are struggling. Do you guys ever deal with negative comments from fans? And I talked to Ben Heaney, who ended up getting drafted by the Raiders and moved around in the NFL a little bit. Had a really good career at KU. Was a phenomenal linebacker. I think it was like second in the league in solo tackles. One of the very few bright spots for KU during his time in Lawrence. But I talked to Ben Heaney about this, and he looked at me and said, yeah, just the same day I asked that question to him, he said there was someone on Instagram. All he did was post a picture of himself showing love for the sport that he plays. And he had a fan that, had something to say about it. He deleted the comment. He blocked the person. But my point here is this. Players are already dealing with a lot of negative comments on social media. Now, I'm sure some players, they don't ever read things. Some players probably read them, but try not to acknowledge them. I think there are some players out there, they definitely give too much of a damn, and I don't know why. I see Justin Reed. I love Justin Reed. I think he's a great guy. I really do, and a phenomenal player. Very smart guy as well. But I don't know why Justin Reed gives in to a lot of the criticism. I think I don't see him responding too much. I'll tell you who definitely gave a damn was Tyrann Mathieu when he was in Kansas City. Boy, Tyrann Mathieu gave way too much of a damn about what people had to say. And I can't comprehend why, but he did. He cared. My point is, you have these players who are already dealing with enough shit on social media from fans. So what do you gain as the coach by just throwing all 53 of your players under the bus? What do you gain from that? You cannot convince me that Gerard Mayo leaving London and on that long flight back to Foxborough or wherever they land, Boston, he did not have a regret about that comment. From a PR standpoint, that comment never helps. That never helps. I want to go to the Jets right now because they got blown out on Sunday Night Football, and this is kind of the big talking point in the national media. So what did the Jets do? They fired Robert Saleh. And they go out there, and who are the Jets? I know the Jets, their last game with Saleh was the Vikings, and that was in London. But who did the Jets play last week and they lost to? Buffalo, yeah, and that was a close game. That was a Monday night game. So they lose to Buffalo in a close contest, and then they play Pittsburgh right after the Buffalo game. They get Davante Adams, and despite 4-day notice, Davante Adams still suited up for this game. They were up 15-6 at one point, and then they lose 37-15. Pittsburgh basically scored 31 unanswered, something like that. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers in this game, he played terrible. Again, another bad game from Aaron Rodgers this season. Davante Adams was targeted 9 times, caught just 3 passes, had a drop or 2 in this one. Now, I think he'll get better over time. He and Aaron, need to take a moment because they haven't been around each other in quite some time. 3 days of practice is not going to solve any of that. But I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers right now. People want to make a big deal about Patrick Mahomes and his stat line. Sure, Aaron Rodgers has a better stat line, but not really by much. And you're 2-4 right now, or 2-5. What's their record? 2-5, because they didn't have a bye week yet. Look, man, you go out there, you get Davante Adams. It's only 1 game, so I'm not going to judge that. You fire Robert Saleh. It's been a couple games since then. I'm just going to say this right now. They play the Patriots. They're going to win that game. That's who they play next, right? The Patriots. But after that, you got to figure it out, because I can't say I have a lot of confidence in them beating Houston or Arizona. I know Arizona's been far from perfect this year. They're leading the Chargers right now, 7-3. But Arizona can do some things on offense. Indianapolis, it hasn't been pretty, but they look good. I'm not too high on the Jets right now. I'm really not. And you fired Robert Saleh and you traded for Devontae Adams, and it still looks bad. Again, I know it's still very early and there's time, but if you don't get it going, I think, there needs to be a decision made on Aaron Rodgers. I think the Jets seriously need to make some serious changes here, and I think Woody Johnson needs to take his job more seriously, because I don't know why you're an owner if you're not going to take it seriously. You're in a big market. Don't waste that opportunity and do something about the talent. You did everything Aaron Rodgers wanted, and they can't figure it out. I saw people on social media, and I get people were being facetious, but people are saying, does Aaron Rodgers have any friends that can play defense? People were joking about Clay Matthews coming back, maybe AJ Hawk to possibly come back. It's like, no, the defense is not the problem with the Jets, and not that the Jets defense is top tier perfect defense, but Aaron Rodgers with these turnovers has not helped one bit, especially in some of these games that have been close. Like the Minnesota game, you lost by one possession and you threw 3 picks in this one. Against the Bills, okay, I mean, not terrible, but 3 sacks, 1 pick. I don't know. Like, one of them was on a Hail Mary play. And I get Aaron Rodgers has the thing with Hail Mary touchdowns, but listen, you can't convince me there was not luck on some of these plays with Rodgers. I truly do believe Rodgers has just been somewhat more lucky on Hail Mary plays than everyone else in NFL history, which there's nothing wrong with that. But right now, the Jets defense isn't the problem. Aaron Rodgers has not played great football for the Jets. And this is a football team that built everything around him for him. Whatever he wanted, they went and got. I mean, the Devontae Adams thing, that was in the works for a long time. But it's not coming to fruition. I get last year he was hurt and all that, but that was last year. I mean, more than a year's passed since then. So I don't know, man. I'm starting to hit the panic button on the Jets. They'll win this week. And if they don't, I mean, the panic button, it needs to be tapped repeatedly. That's all I'm going to say. Jaden Daniels suffered a big injury, a rib injury against Carolina. It's funny because Marcus Mariota came in there and helped blow out the Panthers. And somebody commented and said, well, maybe it's not Jaden Daniels. Maybe it's the system. Okay, calm down. It's the freaking Carolina Panthers, okay? Everyone can beat Carolina except for the Raiders, all right? Carolina is still Carolina. I know there was a short period of time where people thought Andy Dalton was going to be the savior. No. That was the Raiders. Jeff Saturday was working for ESPN, essentially was coming off the couch to coach for the Colts. And in his first game as the head coach of the Colts, interim head coach, I should say, he beats the Raiders. It's not very difficult to beat the Raiders. Everyone can do it. Oh, before it was in Christmas. Okay, the Raiders beat the Chiefs once every 3 years. Cool. Yeah, the Panthers are still the Panthers. Listen, Jaden Daniels has been great for the Commanders, but Mariota, I know he's had some success in the past. He's obviously not the same guy. You hope Jaden Daniels is not out for a long period of time, because this is someone that I think, I still feel bad about Washington and what they went through with RG3, because I think RG3 was supposed to have a phenomenal career. Him and Andrew Luck both. Same draft class. Unfortunately, injuries really did dominate them, which we've seen sometimes. We've seen talented players have their careers taken away because of injuries. RG3 was one of them. Hopefully this is not the case with Jaden Daniels. Hopefully this is something minor and minimal at the worst. But hopefully he'll come back strong, because I like the Jaden Daniels story. And I can get behind the Commanders, a team that struggled over the years and looking to try to make a name for themselves. They've had a really good season with Jaden Daniels. So hopefully it's not too terrible for Daniels, and he can come back sooner rather than later. A couple of things I want to get into here. New York Giants fans booed Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley was kind of laughing after the game and was like, yeah, I was glad the game's over with. And he got away from all that booing. I'm not a fan of this kind of thing. I'm really not. I think this just shows you, yeah, sure, there are a lot of people who may be on Twitter and pay attention to the news, But then you see the casuals and a lot of these fans here. Why do you need to boo Saquon Barkley? Because he did not want to leave the Giants. He wanted to stay. If you're upset with anything, you're upset with the Giants front office, and maybe your attention is not directed towards them, the anger, the booing, but that's essentially what, like, if you're the Giants front office, I mean, those guys who have those jobs, they have a brain. They're hearing all those boos and they're like, yeah, that's us. We screwed that up. That's on us. So I know the Giants front office knows that, but can fans can fans just use their critical thinking skills just a little bit here? Because it doesn't make sense to boo a guy that just simply made a business decision for him. Listen, I hated when Derek Johnson went to the Raiders. I know that was a very brief stint in Oakland, but Oakland was the only team that was willing to give him a chance. I hated when Jamal Charles signed with the Broncos. I had no problems with him saying, yeah, I've always wanted to be a Bronco. He's just doing that to fire up Broncos fans, get him excited. Jamal Charles was not getting a lot of suitors because he had been dealing with so many injuries with his knee. So, I don't get people who get all worked up. And then Dexter McCluster, who, one of the nicest guys you will ever come across to ever put on a Chiefs uniform. When he came back to Arrowhead as a member of the Titans, and whenever they called his name, when he was getting ready to return a punt, when fans heard his name through the speakers, they booed him. That did not sit well with me. Every fan base does this. I want to be clear about that. Every fan base does it. But booing Dexter McCluster did not sit well with me. Like, that is one of the damn nicest guys I've ever been around. I actually had a chance to talk to Dexter McCluster once at a concert. This was obviously before the concert, but this was the Kanye West and Jay-Z concert in 2011, the Walk the Throne concert. Chase, we'll get into that. That's actually the last thing I have here. We'll get to that next. That'll be the final topic, and we'll get out of here. But Dexter McCluster, I spotted him sitting right next to, not a couple rows in front of my brother and I. People were still making their ways to the seat. And the concert started late because Kanye and Jay-Z, they performed in the Victoria's Secret fashion show, but obviously that was taped. So it wasn't live, but they wanted to watch their own performance. So the show started like an hour and a half late. So people just had time to chill out and hang out and do whatever. And so my brother and I talked to Dexter McCluster for a little bit. And, that was a season that wasn't going as well. So I just told him, hey, man, sorry about the season. He was super nice about it. There was a woman with her two daughters. They knew he was a Chiefs player. And they were like so shy about wanting to take a picture. And I just whispered to them, I go, he's a ladies' man. And they immediately asked me, they're like, hey, will you take a picture? So Dexter McCluster, I will always appreciate him. And I've heard other stories about, WWE events, KU games, Royals games, how cool he was with everybody. So when Chiefs fans booed him, that did not sit well with me. That didn't sit well with me. Anyway, fans do it all the time. I think it's dumb. I wish fans would maybe just follow the sport a little bit and use their brains and understand that there are reasons why things happen. It's not done in spite of anyone. These players are just looking out for themselves. And for Saquon Barkley, the opportunity was provided to him by the Eagles. Unfortunately for Giants fans, that's a big rival of theirs. So that's what's going on. Yeah, the Ravens are putting a beating on the Bucs. The Bucs kind of had a hot start early, and they've been is it a 27-0 run? I've been doing this podcast, so I haven't been able to pay close attention to this game. By the way, I have a rant here. Two rants, actually. What is with the inconsistent doubleheaders? Like, how do they determine which weeks they do a doubleheader and which weeks they don't? I get the logic in doing a doubleheader right now because you have the baseball playoffs. I mean, you don't have a game right now. I get that. But, the thing with the NFL is if there was a playoff game going on today for baseball, or even if the World Series started right now, Tuesday morning, what do you think people in the national media, like on radio shows and TV shows, what do you think they talk about? The World Series or the doubleheader Monday Night Football game? Well, in the doubleheader, there's a chance for something big to happen in one of the games. I mean, the NFL just dominates headlines, but I've never understood the inconsistency with with how they're doing the double headers. It used to be week 1, right? And then the last couple of years, it's like, okay, we'll do it in week 2, 3, or 3 and 4. Now it's like, I didn't even know there was a doubleheader until I was doing my picks. So that's kind of confusing. Very confusing, in fact. The other thing, I was also confused because they're doing the Manning cast. So my next question was, how the hell am I going to get Chargers Cardinals? It's exclusively available on ESPN Plus, which I do have, but I know not everyone has that luxury. And there are a lot of you guys that are fed up with this because you cannot afford to pay for every single streaming service, which I completely understand here. Unfortunately, that is a direction we're going in. By the way, over the in the offseason, we got this, I think it was like a week or two after the Super Bowl, we had a news report. There was like a sports streaming service in the works, and they were going to have the rights to all 5 major sports in America, as well as like college games and a lot of sports outside of the U.S. What happened to that? Because they said it was supposed to come out in the fall. I mean, technically, I guess we're still in the fall, but I don't know. Thought that was very interesting. All right, last comment here. The Deshaun Watson situation. If you guys saw this, Deshaun Watson suffered a leg injury. He ruptured his Achilles, and if you look at the replay, it's a brutal looking injury. And listen, Deshaun Watson, he's been terrible this year. He's really been bad the entire time he's been with Cleveland. Actually, the Browns fans were. I mean, they've been wanting a switch already, which was odd because they made Jameis Winston inactive and they had some guy who I'd never heard of end up playing the game. But as he's sitting on a cart and crying in tears with a towel over his head covering his face, there were a lot of people chanting and cheering. And you even heard some fans chanting, "You deserve it." It was either "you deserve it" or "you deserve this." One of those things. Jackson says he needs a massage. I've already seen people make the joke about how, Watson with his rehab is going to have massages. It's like, oh boy, which actually leads me to my next point. I don't agree with celebrating someone's downfall like this. But folks, we are in an era, and again, the social media era, not just in sports. You see this a lot in politics. Let me give you an example, a political example. Remember when Texas was going through that unexpected freeze? And what does the senator of Texas do? One of the senators. He bolts out of there and goes straight to Cancun, and then blames it on his daughter because she wanted a trip to get away from the cold. Dude, people on social media are not forgiving. People still, to this day, make jokes about the whole Cancun thing to Ted Cruz. Do you think Ted Cruz likes that? Hell no. Now, circling back to sports here with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, you guys know the thing with Deshaun Watson. Several sexual harassment allegations here. And even though, this was never proven, there is a screenshot of Watson apologizing to someone. So something happened. Something definitely happened with all of these incidents. You don't get a bunch of people who make this claim and want you to suffer the consequences. And listen, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but I will say this very quickly. As an athlete, as someone who is a professional athlete, and look, I'm not trying to sound sexist when I say this, but me personally, if I'm a professional athlete, and no disrespect to any women, I'm sure there are a lot of women who are great physical therapists and really good massage therapists. But physically speaking, if I'm a professional athlete, wouldn't I want a guy to be a massage therapist than a woman? Because logically speaking, men are just physically bigger and stronger than women. The fact that Deshaun Watson, every single massage therapist was a woman, that doesn't make any sense. Again, I want to be very clear because I know someone's going to clip this and blow this out of context and everything. I'm sure there are a lot of great females in the physical therapy, massage therapy industry. But logically speaking, it doesn't make sense for a professional athlete who has all the money, who certainly needs the best care for his body. Every single physical therapist was a woman. When, again, men, there are some men in this industry, and men in general are just physically bigger and stronger. And Deshaun Watson, all of them were women. Yeah, that was interesting. Anyway, I went on that longer than I should have. My whole point is this. We are in an era today where people are not very forgiving, and people do not forget either. They don't. Now, I'm not endorsing or trying to justify what Browns fans did. I'm seeing a lot of people speak up on this. Browns players spoke up. Even I think there was a Bengals player that even spoke up against this. LeBron James had something to say. I mean, everyone's had something to say about this. At the end of the day, people don't care. Listen, the comment about Deshaun Watson, he's been a model citizen most of his time. Shut up. That's not a time to justify anything with Deshaun Watson right now. I mean, I get it. He's hurt, and he's basically getting kicked while he's down. But I'm telling you right now, people are just not very forgiving, and they do not forget. Now, let me be very clear, because Browns fans are a bunch of hypocrites right now. Browns fans, as soon as they got Deshaun Watson, they were defending Deshaun Watson really hard when people were talking about these sexual harassment allegations. But suddenly, he's playing so bad, and you're cheering that he got hurt because he has not been playing very well, and now suddenly you don't care about the past, and you're willing to jump on the rest of the league, the rest of the fans about his past because of his poor play. Listen, narratives do change with people and how they play in sports. I'm not that's not breaking news. You guys know that. But man, I don't really have much else to say other than Browns fans, one, are hypocrites. Because I got a lot of pushback from Browns fans. I got a lot of pushbacks and threats from Browns fans about my comments about Deshaun Watson. And now all of those fans were mocking Deshaun Watson. But anyway, people, and again, this is not just Browns fans that did this. I want to be very clear. There are a lot of people. I saw people who say, "Oh, this is a great day for women." Okay, I mean, listen. I'm not here to defend Deshaun Watson, but I'm also not going to push back too much against people's reactions to this. I don't like it. I don't think it's a human thing to do. Certainly does not give me any confidence about humanity in the moment. But I'll tell you right now, that's our society. We are not very forgetful, and we are not very forgiving as a society. So when we see a celebrity who, let's just be honest, they're not a good person, and when they do have a downfall, people are going to parade around it. I mean, listen, think of, and I don't want to make comparisons here, but haven't we as a society has celebrated a few deaths before? I mean, look at the guy who was responsible for 9/11. A lot of people celebrated that, but there were a few people saying, why are we celebrating someone's death? They're still a human being. The people responsible for the Boston Marathon tragedy, people were celebrating when they found out that person's life came to an end. Fred Phelps, a lot of people, especially in the state of Kansas, know who that is, especially in the Midwest. I mean, those people got attention for mocking people at their funerals. When Fred Phelps passed, a lot of people mocked his passing as well as a family, which was ironic, very hypocritical from the family side because they were asking for privacy. Well, yeah, I bet the people who you've mocked and picketed their funerals, they wanted the same thing, but you didn't give it to them. Now, again, not to compare any of that to Deshaun Watson, though all of them are still pretty bad. My point is, as a society, we are not very forgetful. We're not forgetful at all. Society doesn't forgive very easily. So, when bad things happen to bad people, some people out there are going to have some things to say. I don't like it, but hey, I'm just one person. I'm just telling you how I see it. That's just the way it goes. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Quick reminder about the week ahead. We will do the Chiefs Zone podcast on Wednesday. We will preview the game between the Chiefs and the Raiders. We will break that game down. I will give you my prediction. Spoiler alert, we got a W on the way. Obviously, we cannot forget the puppet that was used by that Raiders player. Remember, we do not forget as a society. We don't forgive either. So we know that talking point, that subject is going to be brought up this week. And the Chiefs, they're going to want to really play hard for Mahomes. And Mahomes is definitely going to want to have his best game of the year just to get revenge for that. You know that damn well. And then the Red Friday live chat. For the second week in a row, the Red Friday live chat will be live 11 a.m. Central Time. I do have a scheduling conflict. I had a scheduling conflict last Red Friday. Have another scheduling conflict this Red Friday. So we'll still have the Red Friday live chat. It will just be much sooner. It'll be 11 a.m. Central Time. It will go back to normal the following Friday. And then Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Time, I will be doing the pregame live chat. Then we'll do the halftime live stream during the Chiefs and Raiders game. And then after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast live. So please join me after the game. We will recap the game between the Chiefs and the Raiders. Hopefully, we'll be talking about the 7-0 Kansas City Chiefs. Hey, I appreciate all you guys, all the support tonight, over the weekend, and in the past. You guys have been really awesome. The numbers have been way up, especially the post-game podcast. These are numbers that we've never had before for post-game podcasts before. So thank you guys so much. Means a lot. Please continue to share the links. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. It's youtube.com/@thechiefszone. Trying to get the numbers up on there. Until then, I'll talk to you guys Wednesday night, breaking down Chiefs, Raiders. Have a good night.